according to the official report, the fuel cut-off switches were actioned shortly after liftoff from run to cut-off. Excuse me. And that implies that somebody did that as a conscious human action, because so far as we understand, these switches have a lock mechanism. They have to be lifted in order to be moved, otherwise they're locked in position. Now, the official report muddied the waters a little bit by releasing an advisory notice issued by the Federal Aviation Administration in the US some years ago, saying that some of these switches have been installed with the lock mechanism disabled, and that Air India, the operators should check that. Air India admit that they didn't. So, that leaves us still hanging as to whether or not these switches could be moved accidentally. But the console these switches are mounted in was replaced. And so one might assume that it was a fully functioning system as it was intended. Plus the fact that the fuel cutoff was initiated first with one engine and then the other, which kind of implies a conscious lifting of a switch, moving it, lifting another switch, moving it. And of course, that opens another whole can of worms as to why somebody would do that. I took part in a program on an Indian television station in which one of their senior training captains came out and said, well, I think he did it deliberately to commit suicide, which is a bit of a blunt statement, and I think rather presumptuous, because we simply don't know. Although the investigators will know a lot more than we do. I mean, what is quite interesting is that they have not said which pilot said, why you cut the fuel off, and the other one denied it. They don't say which is which. Now, the cockpit voice recorder will record each individual pilot through their headset, and they will know exactly. It will be one channel for the captain, one channel for the first officer, and then there will be an area microphone that will pick up any sound on the flight deck. So they may be able to tell whether they'll hear a click of a switch being activated. And I think the fact that they don't name which pilot said what indicates that they're being very circumspect and probably trying to avoid deliberately pointing the finger at any one of them, because this is only a preliminary report. The full report will obviously come up with final conclusions. It would appear on the face of it, unless somebody can show that these switches were faulty or that there is some weird electromechanical process by which they can be moved without human intervention, which I think is vanishingly small. Somebody lifted and moved one switch followed by the other. I find it hard to believe that that's something you would do by accident. But of course, if the locking mechanism didn't actually function on this aircraft, you can't entirely rule out the fact that someone inadvertently touched them and they flicked off. Having said that, I can't see why any pilot would have their hands anywhere near the area where these switches are located. The first officer was flying the aircraft. His hands would have both been on the control column. The captain would have been monitoring what was going on. So he had his hands free. Now, a senior training captain on a 777 told me that he's found people resting their hand on the console near those switches because they have a similar system. So, we come back to where we started. We kind of know what happened, but we don't know why. And that's pretty much what a preliminary report does. Tells you the what, but not the why.